the light of what Christ was doing through Paul truly dawned on them at this time. It was already known that the Gentiles could be a part of the church. Where is that recorded? Somebody? Well, no. Already known previously. Not Ephesians. I'm talking about the apostles, the hierarchy in the church. They already...
15th chapter.
15th chapter, but before that. Go back to chapter, it begins with 1 and ends with 1. Chapter 11, okay, and
He said,
Cornelius.
The gospel, and I'm turning to the Gentiles.
Cornelius.
Oh,
Remember,
that's
they already...
10.
Yeah, well, 10, but it's repeated in 11. So, yes, he was explaining it to them in 11. 10, it happened, and then he went back to the church, but you're right, okay? It happened in 10, but in 11, he went back and they said, you went and ate with unclean people or you whatever, and then he explained it. And so they realized Gentiles could be accepted at that time. But you are correct, okay? It happened in Acts chapter 10. And then it's re-explained, not word for word, but very closely in Acts chapter 11. So that's what I'm thinking of. And then the Acts chapter 15 simply solidified that. But by that time, they already had a church up in Antioch, and that's where people were meeting, and that's when they all came down for this big thing in Acts chapter 15. But let's see, even more than this. Oh yeah, this was seen in the account of Cornelius' conversion in Acts 10 and 11. And even more than this, it came through Peter's evangelism rather than Paul's. So they knew that it had to be correct because Peter was the one that went down and talked to Cornelius. Paul wasn't even in the picture at the time. All right, he was. Acts chapter 9 was his conversion, but 8 and 9. 8, it talks about him. 9, he had his conversion, but he was not the one who did the evangelism down in Caesarea Maritime. What?
Antioch, I know I'm picking here, but you always go up to Jerusalem.
Did I say down?
Yes, you did.
Okay, well, it's going down to Antioch from Jerusalem, but I was thinking of Sarasota, Florida. So
I know you look at the map and it's
yeah,
up there.
no, I know. No, you're right though. If I said Jerusalem, then it is down to Antioch. That is correct. I don't know where I was referring from, so I may have been thinking
you
of
said
Sarasota.
They came down from Antioch to Jerusalem for the council. That's when
Well, then they came down. Yes, you're right. Okay, if I said Antioch and Jerusalem in the same sentence, then they need to know that I was wrong because you were going up to Jerusalem. And I talked about that just, when was it? I think in the Prophecy Update Sunday.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, okay, so there you go. So
I knew you knew.
Oh, yeah, I do know. It's just if I said it, it's like me saying Peter and when I mean Paul, I always get things backward in my head. That's my mental dyslexia. Anyway, okay, so Peter's evangelism rather than Paul's, and then there could be no disputing that what Paul was doing was both correct and in line with the purposes of God. Because of this occurrence between Peter and Cornelius, we know that's true. And yet, the focus of the evangelism of the uncircumcision belonged not to Peter, but to Paul. Peter was the one to introduce it. There's a reason why. We'll go back into the book of Acts and you'll see all of this beautifully laid out. But for right now, it is Peter who introduced it, but Paul is the one that got the ministry committed to him. He was uniquely qualified to carry out this ministry, and it had been committed to him. The fact that Paul is specifically noted as the apostle to the Gentiles is recorded both implicitly and explicitly in Romans 11:13, 1 Timothy 2 verse 7, and 2 Timothy 1 verse 11. I'll read it again in case you want to write that down. Romans 11:13, 1 Timothy 2 7, and 2 Timothy 1 11. That is explicit. These, along with this note in Galatians 2 verse 7, are sufficient evidence of the specificity of Paul's ministry. It is not a different gospel. It is a focus of the gospel. Okay, it is to the uncircumcision.